Town has its sound turned off. Uh,
Yes, I am.
I was gonna say the owl. Try saying something now. Hello? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, well, welcome to the fishing panel. We're glad you're here. This is all generations. The past, the future, everything. Mike?
Start real quick. Yeah, so thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Mike Belvin. I'm the Executive Director of the Grace Innovation Center and the St. George Community Development Corporation. And I really just want to thank all the panelists for being here tonight. We got two more who are on their way. One because I gave them the wrong time in an early email, so that one's on me. He was just getting in from hall and gonna try to shower and get right over here. But what we really wanted to do was have a conversation across generations from people, from younger people who are getting into the fishery to people of a lot of experience in the fishery, and sort of see from those perspectives of different generations, you know, what are they seeing now? What do they anticipate for the future? I did try to get an eighth grader to get on this panel. I was really close, but I think I might have a candidate for next time around. But yeah, I want to, welcome you all here. And really, I'll have the panelists each introduce themselves. But I think it, oh wait. But I think this is an opportunity for a great conversation among them, but also then for you all to ask questions and to really think about the fishery, the economy in our community, from across different age groups, from, again, people who are getting into the fishery, from people with a lot of experience. So I'll hand the mic over and let you all.
Tad Miller, out of Tennis Harbor Fishing Co-op, currently the president. I've fished around a little bit in my career. Started out as a kid in Cape Columbus, Maine, southern Maine. My family migrated up this way. Ended up down on the shore, just down the street here, where the co-op exists. And I'm currently fishing Matinicus Island. I've fished there for 25, 26 years. I've fished Tennis Harbor, I've fished Martinsville, I've fished Allen Island also. Been around a little bit, not to mention a little bit of ground fishing, a few other things too.
I'm Silas Miller. I'm a fourth generation lobsterman. I fish here in Tenants Harbor. I'm also a member of the Tenants Harbor Fishermen's Co-op. I started lobstering when I was 8 years old and been doing it ever since.
I'm Obi Miller. I'm Silas's cousin, basically, similar upbringing. I've also been fishing since I was 8, fourth generation fisherman. Yeah, I fish Tenants Harbor as well and go out of the same co-op that Tad and Silas do.
Yeah. Ella, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ella. I fish out of Port Clyde, like in the summer, and I've been doing it, I don't even know, a long time. Well, not super long, but I have no idea. Sorry. Um, but yeah, my dad's Jerry Cushman. I feel like a lot of people know him, but I fish out of the same co-op as him.
Or other panelists online, or? I don't think so.
Oh, so yeah, John's on his way.
Okay,
And I do want to thank Monique for facilitating the panel.
Thank you. I was actually gonna take a minute to introduce myself too, since I'm sitting over all by myself at the table. I'm Monique Coombs. I'm the Director of Community Programs for the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association. We're down in Brunswick. Our mission is to restore the fisheries in the Gulf of Maine and sustain Maine's fishing communities for future generations. And my job is sort of the latter half of that. I run our working waterfront program and our fisherman wellness program. And I have been very fortunate to spend some time in St. George and moderated panels like this before. So thank you for having me back. And I'm sure some of you have heard me talk a lot. So I won't talk too much today. I will have some questions for our panelists to kick us off, and we'll have some conversation, and then we can open it up to people in the audience if they have questions too. And then I have a post-it note. So do you want me to read this now?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to get emails about other events in this Working Waterfront series, sign up on the sheet being passed around. If you're on Zoom, please send your email address to the chat.
If you want to get.
If you want to, yeah, if you want to get the more invites. And then if you're on Zoom and you want to ask a question, please raise your hand or type it in the chat. Please and thank you. So I guess my first question for our panelists is, who taught you how to fish? And then tell like a story. Don't just say a name. Like give us a little context with that. Oh, you guys have a mic right there. So why don't you just, hopefully that one works.
Well, originally my father taught me how to fish. We used to go out of his outboard.
I don't think it's on yet.
You might have to hold it. It was kind of till it turns green.
There we go. Yeah, originally I went with my father and we went out of an outboard skiff and we started hand hauling in the harbor and around the shore. And as I got older, I also started going with my grandfather a little bit, and he's always kind of mentored me and, you know, taught me how to be a better fisherman and always helped me be successful. So without them, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, my father's also a commercial fisherman, so he was obviously a big part in how I learned how to fish. And Silas and I have the same grandfather, so you know, he was also very influential in my upbringing. And I guess, you know, similarly, I also fished out of a flat bottom skiff around the shoreline for most of my you know, before my teenage years, and then progressively worked my way up to a full-size fishing vessel. So
Before you pass the microphone, how old were you guys when you started fishing? And what's your earliest memory?
my earliest memory, like, I mean, before I was even fishing, like, I would go out with my father. I probably was like 2 years old. Like, he'd take me out on the boat. And but you know, you can't get your commercial license till you're 8. I mean, your student license till you're 8. So my earliest memory of that, I think I had a row skip before I had an actual motorboat, and that was quite the experience, hand hauling out of a row skiff.
Yeah, I started when I was 6. I went with my brother and we hauled some out of the road skip. I did a little bit, but eventually they shoot us off together. So I'm from a family of 9 kids. And, so I'm the youngest male in the family. I have one sister that's younger than me, but it was the same kind of progression as them. My father was a commercial fish he went lobstering for fishing parties during the summertime. And he was actually a teacher in high school. And he went to go full time, but decided it was too risky with that many mouths to feed. So he went back teaching through most of the year, and we all fished during the summer.
Ella, did you hear my question?
Yes, wait. Who taught me how to lobster?
Taught you how to fish.
My dad. He taught me because my mom forced him to, really. And so he can't have all the credit. And he also taught my brother. Like, we're 3 years apart, so we've been learning together. We started with I don't really remember the boat, but it was a smaller boat. We didn't have to hand haul, which was very nice. And then this past summer, we bought a 33 Young Brothers boat, which is very nice. I'm very happy about that. It makes it a lot easier. And it gives us the opportunity to go further out than we were before. Like, we really couldn't go past the Marshall Point Lighthouse because it wasn't safe, but now we can go way past that. And my uncles have like, I have a lot of uncles. I have a pretty big family and they all lobster. So they've like helped me out a little bit throughout my experience lobstering.
How old were you and Mason when you started fishing?
Wow, I really have no idea.
So a long time ago then.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like before I was in middle school. Oh, I really have no idea. My parents probably know.
We're being told 8 or 9.
Okay, yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. So before we move on too much too, will you guys explain, how you become a lobsterman? Does everybody understand how the student license program works and how much effort gets put into that? We're getting some no's. So, Lee or Silas, if you want to start, and then Tad, I'm gonna pass it to you because I know it was probably a little bit different when you started fishing. So if you guys kick it off and then we'll go to that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of requirements. I think nowadays you have to have your GED or diploma to even like be able to get your commercial license. But assuming that you graduate high school, the process, there's some steps you have to do up to that point. So you need 1,000 hours, which is just 1,000 hours working on the water or gear on land, any type of lobstering activity, even going sternman for someone. But you also need 250 days at sea, I believe. So you need to actually be on the water for 250 days. And then and you have to have your hours logged every 250 hours with someone from the Marine Patrol. And once those hours are signed every 250, you have your full 1,000, you have your 250 days at sea, and then have graduated. You then have to take a safety, or you can do it before, but you have to take a safety course. And then once you submit all that, you're able to purchase your commercial license. So that's essentially the process.
Yeah, anything to add?
Summed it up, basically.
No, I just bought a license, that's how I. So that's the way it was for quite a few years. Another thing these guys have to do, they have to start off with a limited number of tags. We have a tag system, a limited number of traps. That wasn't in existence. It wasn't even in existence when I was a full-time fisherman, fishing out of Martinsville. At one point, I was fishing around 1,400 craps. The cap now is 800, but they start off at 300
and then 100
right?
every year.
And then, yeah, so the build up is a lot different system than it was when I came up through.
I also just want to acknowledge that 1,000 hours is a lot of work, even when you start at 8, especially when you get to high school age, because obviously you only have a certain number of time to do it. So the discipline and dedication of our young lobstermen should not be understated. So, in doing some of this, and Ella, I'll start with you. What were what do you think has been the hardest part of trying to go lobstering as a young kid?
Well, like you said, like going to high school and trying to get all the hours in, and also I knew I didn't want to just like do lobstering as a career. I knew I wanted to go to college and like get a more complicated education. Like my plan was to go pre-med, so doing all my extracurricular activities to get myself to that point, and then also trying to meet my hours and learning about fishing because it is a very complex job. That was like hard managing time. And also from the people I'm learning from is my dad. Like he is a full-time lobsterman along with all of his other businesses. So like making our time schedules line up together was very complicated. And like given that we have kind of just the summers to do it wasn't easy because it's prime lobstering season for both of us. But I'd say that's it.
Silas, what about you for challenges?
I think the biggest challenges are the,
It might be almost out of battery.
Yeah.
if it's
We
going
can actually hear you pretty well, I think.
As long as Zoom can hear it, we should be okay.
I think the biggest challenge is the cost, investing. And you know, the maintenance and buying the gear and buying, you know, the boat and it's all, you know, it's very expensive. Insurance. And insurance and boat payments, you know, it all adds up and it's definitely a challenge. Got to be prepared to spend some money for sure.
What about some of the things that were easier? Like, do you think some of the, and I use this word loosely, older fishermen were helpful in supporting you with access to gear and helping you get your hours?
Absolutely. Yeah. I always got some, you know, I started off with some older traps, older used traps off my grandfather, and that's helped me build my way to, you know, invest in newer gear every year and supplies. So
This isn't on my list, but like, is there something that, as you've been doing this, that someone has told you about fishing that has sort of stuck with you and that you thought has been like the most helpful, like a helpful tip, like either in how you set your gear, and you don't have to give us your secrets or anything, but like just a general story or anything like that?
yeah. You know, I've always been taught to be conservative with what I make and, you know, always, you know, be aware, I guess.
You want to introduce yourself? Sorry.
I am John Tripp. I am John Tripp, fresh off the work and waterfront.
Okay, what about you, Tad? When you were growing up, is there something that someone taught you that has just sort of stuck with you throughout your fishing career?
I can't think of any one instance, I don't think. It's just progressive learning. That's what it is, you know, that's why when you start out as a child is, you know, it's the baby steps, you know, learning where to set. But the electronics have changed immensely. That's an advantage for these guys. They're learning stuff in seconds and minutes that it took guys years to learn. That's no joke, that's true. So, you know, those types of things, it's been great for me too. I'm not, you know, I'm not super great with all the electronic gizmos now, but it definitely has changed fishing, no question about it.
Can you go into that a little bit more? So you're talking about like the technology on the boat?
So technology evolved from when I was a kid. The guys using landmarks. A landmark is when you line something up. For instance, a lighthouse on a set of trees or a certain house, and when you bring them together, when you got to a piece of bottom that you liked and you thought you were doing well, you were looking for landmarks. And if you can, you get them here and here, so you got a cross section. Okay, if you only got one, you got to steam that way until you hit it. They were doing compass, course, and time. And earliest electronics I remember on my father's boat was a flasher, which is when it goes around, it shoots a beam down to the bottom, it bounces back up, and it has a little round dial like this. It shows you the depth. And if the flash was bright enough, it was hard bottom. Soft bottom was a duller flash. That was, you know, there was guys out here when I was driving, you know, using landmarks. And during the winter when we were shrimping, you couldn't see landmarks a lot of times. These guys were really, really good. But they adapted to what they had to do. So.
Have any of you guys thought about the role of technology in fishing in 2026 and how it's different now than it was then and what it might look like in the future?
Yeah, I can tell you so what I just explained was the basis. Where we're at now is some fishermen, I have one, John has one, multi-beam sonar, not sonar, fathom meter. I have sonar on the boat too. So it's going through a computer to a charting system that charts the bottom. And it started out with, I had a single beam. So when you have a regular fathometer bottom machine shooting one thing back up, that's I started this before hardly, my brother Hale was the first one to find out about it in this area. So you're mapping your own bottom. Now I have a machine on the boat that maps, it shoots 120 points every day, not one. Okay, so when you're mapping, that's how much faster you're mapping. So that's the information they're getting is very precise. He could probably
You're
speak
gonna
to
say,
it
John,
even
do
better
you
than I
want-
can, because he's electronically oriented.
Well, when I first got the bottom mapping software, it was amazing. I loved it. And, I got an old crappy laptop and I put it on my father's boat with all the information there. And he said, this is BS. He says, you've got 30 years of knowledge mapped out in 1 year. He says, you don't even have to try. And that same day, he had water dripping down from the antenna tree and it hit the keyboard and fried the computer. And he went into an instant panic because he wanted that right back on the boat. He didn't want to go back to the old ways. So it's made a heck of a difference. You know, it's really efficient for fishing, and I have to wonder what landings would have looked like back in the old days if they'd had this with what was around for lobsters.
Okay, so one of the reasons I was asking about technology is because commercial fishing, as we know, is changing quite a bit. The marine industry is changing a lot and the technology sector is. So for Ella and Obi and Silas, like, have you thought about how you could consider diversifying, or if you're considering diversifying? Ella, why don't we start with you, since you're actually at school right now? Like, what are your plans for the future and how does fishing fit into that?
Well, I'm not good with technology. Ironically enough, like I know I'm supposed to be good with technology because I'm young, but it is not my specialty at all. So I've had a hard time like myself managing and like navigating all the machines on the boat. So I hope it doesn't get too complicated in the future, like because I'm already having a hard time. Um, but I don't know, maybe I mean the old ways don't seem very easy, but I feel like I might need them.
What about like your classes and stuff? Like, what's your plan?
Oh, so my long-term plan, well, I was doing pre-med, but I just switched that. So right now I'm doing a psychology route and then I'm going to go into nursing. So my overall plan is to either be like a therapist or a nurse, some kind of nurse, like a nurse practitioner, and do that. And they usually work, 3 to 4 days. And then on the off days, I would go in lobster, just because I think it is a really cool industry. And I would like to get, like when I have kids, I'd like to get them involved into it and just keep growing that industry because I think it's great. But also being able to do something in the healthcare field because that really matters to me. And they kind of, can intertwine together sometimes, like helping other fishermen that have like lost people at sea or just any of their problems that they might have would be helpful.
I think that's a really great idea, and that's very exciting. And you plan on fishing for like a while?
Yeah, for a pretty long time, and as long as I can. I'm getting the hang of it, I'd say. So probably for the next, however long the summers, springs, or fall will be designated to that. I mean, even the winter, because I gotta save up the money for all the stuff.
And before we move on to somebody else to ask that question
Yeah.
too, you brought up like you want your kids to do this too.
hmm
Why?
I think it is very like eye-opening to see like there is other things out there. Like I've talked to a lot of people at school and they're like, what is lobstering? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. But it teaches you a lot about, I think, safety, like using your brain like to quick because like, the ropes are flying, things are flying everywhere, like learning quick thinking skills like that is very good. Um, Also I think it teaches them hard work, like early mornings, long days, learning about the ocean, I think, is very valuable because I would like to live on the ocean forever. So just knowing what you're doing when you're at sea is helpful.
Yep, good point. Do you guys remember any of my questions? I don't. So I think we were talking about the role of technology, but then also if you've considered diversifying, like doing commercial fishing during some seasons and other opportunities or industries in other seasons. How about we start there?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, diversification is definitely always something that's been on my mind. I mean, I would like, for me, I would like to build myself up enough where like year-round fishing is like a possibility. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket either, but I also haven't thought about it to the point where I have this like laid out plan. But my uncle, he's doing seaweed, which is an interesting, he's been successful with that, which is another like, aquaculture kind of thing. And then, there's a kelp farmer around here that has been fairly successful. And, there's their own challenges in each industry, but, for me, I just enjoy like being on, the water. So that I would prefer if anything I do in the future involves being around the ocean. And, it just kind of comes down to for me at the end of the day, like what I find my passion. And, for me, like one of the biggest things about lobstering is like I'm passionate about it. So it's not just like a means of making money, but it's like also like part of our way of life. And it ties into like what Ella was saying with why she wants her kids to do it. And like both my sisters also were student fishermen. They're younger. And one of them's too old and that didn't end up getting a commercial license, but my youngest sister is still in school and she stopped fishing for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years and then just decided that she wanted to pick it back up again like this summer. And I like can't even really explain it, but it was just honestly made me so happy that she actually picked it back up and was like interested in it again. Not that I think that she's gonna do it necessarily, but just seeing like that passion and like people coming up is just I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing that. So that's what to me it's all about. So
Did she go fishing with you?
not really. I mean I don't think she's really into the full-time fishing, like the long days, but she had a skiff with her boyfriend. They handhold some trap, like 50 traps this summer. So it's nice to see that though. That I think that kind of grounds you at the end of the day. But
Silas, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, as far as diversification goes, I actually helped my uncle with the seaweed. So I know if if I was never able to go lobstering, I could probably maybe do that. Like it'd be an option. And, I thought about aquaculture too. But like Obi said, I'm hoping to build myself up so I can, go lobstering year round because that's my passion too. So.
You might that, huh?
Yeah, I think what you've noticed is everyone's diversity in fishing is on the water. They're not going inland. No one's saying well, Ella, she's doing nursing such. But most guys are diversifying on the water and that's just because we love it so much. We love being there and I don't know. The more I fish, the more I think about it used to be, I never really thought about what I was making. Every day I went to haul, it's just what I did. I love to do. Now the expenses are getting higher and everything like that. And you start thinking about how much you really need to make this worthwhile. And that brings that thought of diversity. And I'd love to open up an ice cream shack or something on land that doesn't have to do with ocean just as a safety net or something like that. But that always seems like such a huge lift to step away from the water to try and do something. So, it's
What do you think makes someone a good fisherman?
strong back and a weak mind's what I always heard. Good, it's that gets up and tends their gear regularly, and I mean. You don't have to be the best fisherman out there to be successful. All you have to do is get up in the morning, put your boots on and go to haul and put an effort in. That's one of my favorite things about fishing is you get out of it what you put into it. Doesn't matter who you are or anything. If you're a hard worker, you can make a good living, fishing.
What about you guys? What do you think makes a good fisherman? Have you put much thought into that?
I mean, I couldn't agree more with what John said. I think it's really what you put into it. Like it all comes down to effort. There's challenges in anything that you choose to do. So just like same thing with lobstering, the more effort you put into it, the more you're going to overcome and the more you're going to learn. So that at the end of the day, it's just, you're constantly learning out there. At least to me, I personally wouldn't have it any other way since after I left school and became a fisherman, like it's taught me more than I think I ever could have learned elsewhere. So a lot of determination for sure.
You don't have to follow up to that, right?
Yeah.
Like what did it teach you? Do you have like,
Well, I mean, like I said, determination, like, you just kind of can't give up. And there's a lot of times when you're out there and something breaks down and all of a sudden you're stuck with this situation where, you either got to call for help or fix it yourself, whatever it is, like you can't just like do nothing, so, and then also in the spring, when you got to ramp back up, after taking a couple months off and doing something else while you're not fishing, you got to get back into that mindset where you got to ramp back up and you got to show up every day, set your gear, move them around. Lobsters are constantly moving. They're not always in one spot. So, you're constantly like, there's no downtime. You're always doing something. So it's just like, it teaches you just kind of never give up, I guess is what I'd say.
Atlas?
Yeah, so basically what John and Obi said, put the effort in and have the drive and have a work ethic, be willing to put the days in. Oh,
Got any thoughts, Ted?
It'll be a problem solver. You gotta be a self-starter. Ties into what they're saying. There's probably more challenges because of the expense of the business. Got an advantage for these guys, having a family to come up through is probably a little more of a challenge for somebody that doesn't. Because they're not gonna get traps as easily or a hand with a boat, or how do you fix that, or how do you fix that, the other thing, but the experience, you're a jack of all trades and master of none, definitely fits the classification. But there's a lot to it, and when we talk about loving it, some of the days I like the best is when I make the least amount of money in the spring. When you're out there first thing in the morning, you could roll a marble from Botanica style of, and the sun's just coming up over the horizon, whatever. There's no better place to be. So, that's where our passion comes from, is that kind of stuff. If you're passionate about it, the work isn't quite as hard. We grumble plenty, but there's, if you don't love it, like any, probably most jobs, it's just gonna be work and it's gonna be harder.
Ella, what do you think makes somebody a good fisherman?
Like taking responsibility for your own actions. Like, I think you really need to be responsible because you need to continuously call your gear, because it's not fair to the other fishermen to have your gear in the water and not taking care of them. I mean, the determination to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you gotta have that, and then potentially be out there until it's dark. My dad says you need more bait and good bait because he's trying to get me to sponsor his bait business right now. But yeah, I mean, responsibility, determination, like they said, I guess motivation. Caring for the other fishermen too, I think is very important. Like, yeah, we're all in competition, but at the end of the day, I think it is like we all have to be there for each other because working on the water is very dangerous. So I think that's like caring for the others out there.
What is something that has made you proud?
Well, I got my license, so that was pretty good, like getting that off my chest and off my plate. Um, I don't know. I guess I've also been halibut fishing like throughout the summer. My dad's been teaching me how to do that, and I'm really proud of all the fish we caught doing that. That was really fun.
Is there, for you guys in the room, is there something that you can think of in your memories that was like a proud moment as a fisherman? Yeah.
Started that co-op right down there, that's been in my family as a war for private war for a lot of years, since 1975. And for a group of fishermen to get together and face the challenges, and they're still facing them. Get together and band together and try and do something with that I'm pretty proud of the fact that they took on that challenge at this time. It's not always a lot of fun. And it's a lot of extra work, and something John can attest to it. So can anybody else that's sold to a dealer. And when you get done with the co-op, if you're an active member, you don't just walk up over the dock at the end of the day. Whatever's going on needs to be tended, needs to be tended. You're an owner.
And,
I mean, I agree with that. I was younger when the co-op was founded, but you know, it definitely, that's probably one of the things I take the most pride in is being able to, you know, have that kind of legacy, that working waterfront that we have down there. And it's a special thing. You know, there's a lot of things that like you get like accolades you could point to, like fishing, but like, you know, in general, like I think that's what matters the most is like the way that as a fishery, like the guys can kind of band together when it matters most. So
I think one thing I take pride in, and I think most fishermen up and down the coast will take pride in, is pretty much every one of us is self-made. We all start when we're little kids, or most of us start when we're little kids, and we work our way up through. We get some old traps and stuff like that, might get your first boat. But when you start out as a kid, you work your way up through. You're building yourself, but you're taking stepping stones. I paid my father back for my first outboard. I bought my next boat by myself and so on and so forth, and took a long time to build up. I went through a lot of old boats and a lot of old traps. I patched a lot of gear and you know, I was proud of the fact when I finally got into a a bigger boat, a decent boat, that, you know, I'd gotten there myself. Knowledge has been passed down and stuff like that, but for the most part, I got there myself, and I think most fishermen can say that for themselves.
I think there's a lot of pride in the fishing industry. I mean, I know listening to you guys, it makes me proud to be part of a fishing family, because everything that you're saying, like, it resonates pretty deeply with, I think, a lot of fishing families along the coast. So I've got one more question that everybody has to answer, and then we can open up to questions in the audience too. And it's dealer's choice, okay? Can you share a memory of either like your best day or your biggest mistake or something funny? Does anybody want to start? We can give you you can have a couple of seconds to think about it, and then someone's gonna go. Biggest mistake, funniest memory. Doesn't have to be appropriate. I'm just kidding. And what you're like your best day. Or your worst day, I guess. Ella, did you hear that?
Yeah, I can go. Sorry, I didn't hear if you said my name.
No way. Go for it.
Well, this summer I was going with my dad as his like one of his sternmen, and we caught, I don't know how many pounds it was. It was over 100-pound halibut, and he was so excited. I've literally never seen him so excited before. And he was like throwing me around. He was like jumping up and down. He couldn't even believe it. He's doing his little arm thing he does when he gets all happy. And so that was pretty funny. And happy at the same time. One bad, I guess I didn't really make the mistake, but one day when I was learning how to lobster, my mom was going with me and my dad, and she threw a bait iron overboard on accident. And I remember that was just not a very good day. We sat in the front of the boat while he drove. We were all like, be quiet, be on our best behavior, can't make him mad. But that was pretty funny to look back on too.
Good talk with next.
I mean, I guess this isn't. Yeah, I'd say this tends to be. It's kind of funny and bad. But this is like when I was a lot younger. My friend, one of my best friends, always used to kind of come out with me when I was like 11, 12 years old when we were hand hauling out of the skiff. And I just remember one time we were like driving back in the harbor, and the engine fell off the back of the boat. Uh-oh. Yeah, that was quite interesting because we only had the dogs were tightened on it. It wasn't actually bolted to the hull, which, you know, if you're tightening them all the time, then it doesn't matter. But you know, no one told us that, so it was hanging on by the power start cord attached to the battery. So that was an interesting afternoon.
Get it going again?
Yeah, no, I mean, actually, someone else came up alongside us and they helped us pull the engine back in the boat. But it was a brand new outboard too, so that was cool. But it's funny to look back on.
If they haven't, I don't.
You guys think of anything? We can always come back to you if we got, you got one, Chad?
Yeah, I'm just gonna shine a light on a little different thing. In spring of 75, 76, I can't, it must have been 76.
Hey, you might have to use the mic. You're just a low speed.
Here, you want this one, so
I can speak up.
there you go.
Yeah.
I think it was the spring of 75. I lost my brother at sea. And a good friend, a local guy here, Mike Percy, was with him. And I was in 8th, 9th grade then. I think now being a parent and realizing, you know, I know my parents never got by it, the pain and whatever, but I think that happens for every, you know, anybody obviously who loses a child, but to lose them, they never recovered the bodies or any of that. And it was a happy day for him. He was going to get a new boat up in Stockton Springs. Wasn't much of a boat, broke down on the way home. Them being young men at 21 years old, they don't really know what happened. Knowing my brother and Mike Percy, they probably said, the heck with this, we're out of here. They had a skip with them. He jumped in that, no oars. It was May 1st, so, don't know much beyond that, but, you know, there's a lot of us that have ties to that stuff, that, you know, just another side of the fishery.
You come up with one, Carlos?
A few falls ago, I had my boat break off the mooring. And, I just put a brand new engine in it. That prior spring. And, that was, something I don't want to experience again. I happened to get very lucky. It landed on the sandiest part of the harbor. So, wasn't a fun experience.
Did other fishermen help you out? How'd you?
Yeah, my uncle helped me out and a lot of fishermen from the co-op came down and helped me out. So it all worked out. We got it out at the high tide, so luckily it was minimal damage and it was still floating, so, and no damage is done to the engine. So escaped that one.
Well, my funnest days obviously are my most successful days, you know. I've had my biggest haul ever was my best day. I beat my father's biggest haul ever, so that was an awesome day for me, but those aren't fun stories. So everyone talks about how good those 42 Brunos are and how great they are and all the stuff that they can and can't do. And I had all my worst days on that boat. I remember coming off a wave and hitting it and it throwing the boat sideways so hard, my lobster box picked up off the engine box and slammed into the starboard rail full of water. And I had a cowl tray, which is where it hangs off the side of the box, and that landed perfectly on the washboard to save my stern man from getting completely crushed. Another day we were steaming down. I guess this was in the wood boat. It was a pretty rotten day and blew out a trunk house window and water shot all the way across the boat and fried my computer. I had my third man. He didn't have very much sea experience. One thing about wood boats, when you're going through the sea, every time you hit it, it sounds like there's someone down there with a sledgehammer trying to come through the boat. It's just cracking and creaking. And he came up, there was water all over down forward, and he was screaming up at the top of his lungs, we blew a plank, we're going down. I had to settle him down. I said, look, it's all right. We just cracked the window, and everyone thought we were done. So I rolled up a pair of oil gear and stuffed it in the window, and we went and hauled 300s.
Thank you guys for sharing all those stories. That was good. Now we can, does anybody in the audience have questions or thoughts that they would like to ask? Sure, go for it.
Tell us about all the diversity when you're not lobstering. There are other things that you do. Halibut, hoagie, scalloping.
What did she say? Sorry, I can't. It's having a hard time hearing.
I'll repeat it. She asked for like the diversity. So like when you're not lobstering or not in school, you said you're going halibut fishing, or for you guys in the room, like in this, are you building your traps? You said you're doing some kelp. Like what's your onshore work look like?
Well, for me, I help my uncle harvest seaweed year round when I'm not lobstering. And, other than that, I'm, doing gear work or painting buoys, or like Obi said earlier, there's always something to do, so.
But you take a break from the lobstering
Yep,
to do the halibut and the pogies and the
Yep.
scallop.
I halibut fish too, but that's more of a for fun thing more than anything, so.
So tell us about that.
Well. Hey,
What
springtime,
difference is it from the lobstering? Equipment, obviously.
yeah, so equipment wise, it's a long line with hooks on it and weights on it, and it's not, you don't use a trap. So,
So generally, most of the guys that are halibut fishing, depends, they can fish any number of hooks. I fish a longer one than a lot of guys do. You can fish up to, what is it, 150 hooks, I think.
I'm a tenant, yes. 200.
No, I fish right around 100 hooks. Some guys will fish shorter, but it's a long line, plays along the bottom, has baited hooks, so. And you can haul it in your hauler or the old way. My brother fishes shorter lines, he has a smaller boat. He does it, most of us do it for fun, not really the money. And he'll hand haul his, which I used to out of my boat, but after hand hauling a couple of trawls 2 times a day, that long gets, I let my hauler do the work now and feel it every once in a while. It's a pretty big thrill to feel a fish down there thumping. You can feel that haul of it. Boom, 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 and he's right like that, so it's kind of fun, boating. I've done a lot of different fisheries that some of these young guys don't get the opportunities, and there's some things that gotta happen. Eventually, I think it's a challenge. I taught Mike when I came in the room. I went to a hearing today in Augusta on Ben Hayden, which is police, to speak, in this case, against the bill. It was allowing more people in. I can't, there's no sense to go into all the whys and why nots, but I love diversity in fisheries. That's what I wanna do. If you're just hauling traps, you really gotta love hauling traps, because after a while, it's piecework. There's mind work goes with it, but I like to change. I've done tripping, I've done scalloping, I have a scallop boat currently, second boat. I've been out west fishing, ground fishing, I've done most of the fishing except for offshore long line, and I love the diversity of it. I also worked as a caretaker for a while, for the Wyatts for 8 years. So.
Sorry, Don.
Diversity, pogie fishing is a blast, and anyone that's been out in the harbor in the last few years has probably seen the schools of pogies. That's been the funnest fishery to participate in. That was a new one to me, so having that opportunity has been fun. Close to shore, it's warm out, calm, beautiful. Yeah, that's been the most fun. I go down to Massachusetts, scalloping, that was neat to see that fisheries. Been a fun little poke at scalloping. We don't obviously, that's not so accessible up here because of the limit on licenses, but that was a neat thing to experience, being able to experience some of the diversity that my father's generation had. We were shut down for a while. There's pretty much nothing else you were gonna do. And being able to get into a little bit of that's been really, really exciting. Hopefully we'll continue to grow that way.
Okay, go ahead.
I got a 2-part question. You're talking about the 1,400 traps that you used to be able to fish with and all the years of changes. And do you think the state is the regulatory side of the state is too aggressive or saving the fishery? And the second part is, if you had a magic wand in Augusta, what would you change to make your life better as a fisherman?
Those are hard questions. Here you go, Dominic.
You want me to try and
Yeah,
answer?
you want to grab the mic though, so that.
So, yeah, we growl about regulation, no question about it, but. You gotta have regulation on the other hand, because. We're really not farmers, we're hunters. And we'll hunt ourselves out of business possibly, if you let us, if we let ourselves. I think lobstermen have been particularly good in the fact that they pursued the measures that they did. You know, having a physical measure, releasing, having a breeding stock and all that. Some of the other fisheries have not done as well. I think we've learned a lot through the years. But it was a loaded question. The second part of it is what can happen in Augusta? You know, when you go up there for a hearing on something, you're facing a board of politicians and Marine Resources Committee that's making a choice of something that most of them don't really understand how it works. There's a place for legislators, okay, because they're representing the public. But they don't have the professional side of the business. They don't understand that, or the science side of the business. They're being spoken to by fishermen, by regulators, and they gotta try and sort it out. I would really like to see a diverse board built that includes legislators, maybe some of the associations, DMR, scientific wing of DMR, because I think you're gonna get a better result. Unfortunately, through our progression, because of electronics, bigger boats, faster boats, all of that, our capability is greatly expanded over what it was when I was young, and that's part of our problem. So how you are allowed to fish, you gotta leave enough for the guys that are there to make a living. They're making a big investment. On the other hand, you gotta protect the resource, number one. Without it, we have nothing. So arriving at that place can't be done because I feel bad because you got picked to go. You're already going, but you wanna go and you can't get in. It's not an easy decision for people that are looking for votes to look at that person who wants to get in and say, sorry, you can't get in because there's too many. So my thoughts are, is in a lot of fisheries, we need to create entry systems that are different than what we have now, which currently is lottery. A lottery is a long waiting list that you could be 50 years dead and never get in, okay? You need to be more responsive and build something out, which is what I tried to get to them today. But the vote didn't go that way. I put them right ahead of the horse. So anyway, it's a long story, but that's what I got to say on it.
Anything to add?
I think in Augusta, as far as that goes, the DMR. Yeah, I think in Augusta, the DMR has been really good at communicating with the fisheries organizations. I'm a member of I'm a board member of the MLA, Maine Lobstermen's Association, and as far as regulation goes, you talked about the 1,440 traps. A lot has come from the fishermen. A lot of the regulation has been brought on by ourselves, you know, trying to keep this fishery lucrative and be good stewards and everything like that. So having honest conversations with the DMR and having trust, knowing that you can have conversations with people, talk about stuff and know that you're not gonna get crucified for it. That's what's been one of the benefits of being on the MLA is you've seen those conversations happen. You see more than what's posted on Facebook and stuff like that. You know, there's a better process than what people are selling. So, I appreciate that. I agree with that. With the Marine Resources Committee, stuff gets tough there. You can send a bill into the MRC and, it goes in looking like one thing and comes out being a totally different animal. And, that's been a challenge for, fisheries management for us, I feel like the DMR opposed this bill that Tad's talking about, so therefore you have no trust of the Marine Resources Committee towards the DMR on stuff that the DMR should be regulating, so.
What about for Ella, Silas and Opie? Have you guys thought about advocacy and if you want to play a role in the future, either on a board or an association or going up to Augusta, paying attention to the legislator?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's definitely something that like I think is very valuable. Like I don't like it's not something that we should just like overlook and let people older than us take care of it. Like because we're we're gonna be the next ones up and coming. So to me, like I'm still pretty young, but like I just try to be like a sponge with everything because I want to just learn as much as I can and watch the people before me act as they have. They've done a really good job, I think, advocating already, so that when it's time, like for the passing of the torch, like that we can take that and continue to like support our industry through that means. Yeah, want to say that.
Ella, do you have anything to add?
I mean, like we're the future of like where it's gonna go, so I think not overfishing is very important, and like having those regulations in line is gonna make sure we have a future. So like my kids can get into it and so on, like how my dad's family went. Um, uh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um, wow, I really lost my train of thought. That's so bad.
Okay.
Sorry. It's been a long week at school.
Okay, I think, did you have a question?
Yeah, it was actually for you, Monique. First off, I just want to say this is a really good program and thank everyone and you for doing it because the thought that struck me was that you got to make a living at it, but you really love it too. Like it's about passion and about being on the sea. But my question was your property here in St. George, locally known as the Pagoda, Wildcat, and if you had, not that you have to say anything, but if you had any plans for it at this point.
I actually can't answer that question. We are looking into a lot of different plans, but that's something that Jill and Ben in our office is working with our board on. But I know that they are interested in hearing thoughts from people, especially people in the St. George community. So our website has all of our email addresses on it, and I'm sure in the future, very near future, you will see a lot more MCFA staff around and asking questions and thinking about that. So it's definitely something that wants to be done with the community. That's important to us, so.
Well, it definitely has potential, and I'm really happy that you have it.
Thanks. Definitely has potential, that's for sure. I thought I saw somebody else with their, go ahead.
This might be a bit more on the boring side, but I mean, you guys have talked about fishing and sort of how you learned about fishing, catching lobsters. What about sort of like, you're all small business owners as well. So what about sort of on the business side? What are the resources that you guys have had available to you to learn about running a business, expenses, income, what sort of entity you're incorporating as, all that sort of stuff? Is that just sort of stuff that's been sort of passed down generationally, or sort of how's the learning curve been for that for you guys?
Trial by fire.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah,
So,
I never was really, trial by fire. I never was really taught anything specific. My dad helped me along a little bit because, obviously he's been through it. He's a commercial fisherman. So I had some guidance, but like a lot of, there's also stuff I would run into that he hadn't even necessarily experienced either, so it's like very much a constant learning curve. Like there's still things obviously that I'm learning. So it's like, it never ends, but.
well, I run my business by my guy.
Yep.
He's got his business on his phone and he can tell you where it's at in an instant. Okay, but probably one of the biggest developments for me was getting a good bookkeeper.
Yep.
Okay, and I think a lot of fishermen don't understand that. It took me a long time. I got some information here and there through CPAs and whatever. Katie Crandall. local person here, her father's a lobsterman, she understands the business. Having her input, even though she really didn't come in till later in my life, has been essential, and I think talked to Mike about this before. We've been up to the Island Institute, the Fisherman's Roundtable, it comes up. That's a key priority that said again and again and again. I think for any young people, they don't have to be fishermen. How are you gonna plan to be financially successful?
Yeah.
Getting good advice. You're not just going by your gut, okay? If you're going by your gut, you might or you might not, but if you got somebody there saying, I think you should do this and this is why, and you understand it, you're building blocks. I think that's something you could do for these younger fishermen that would be a tremendous help.
But
So sort of building off of that, there's an eighth grader, they're getting ready to go to high school now, thinking about next year. What advice would you give to them? Like they want to go into the fishery, what advice would you give to them over high school and after high school to get prepared to go into the fishery?
And you guys first,
I mean, I think it's a little complicated with an eighth grader, because there's a lot of things that, like, when I was in eighth grade, that I wouldn't have understood. Like, if someone was talking to me, I mean, I'd say, like, Silas kind of talked about it earlier a little bit, like, really the main thing is, like, being kind of conservative, like, living within your means. Like, if I could go back and tell myself what like, when I first got into the commercial, being a commercial fisherman, I'd tell myself to live on a budget. Like, took me really till, like, the last year to actually figure that out in a conservative way. So I would say just kind of learn to like take calculated risks is probably the best thing I'd say. Like, don't just rush into stuff. So
I think too, for the people that aren't connected to the fishing family. Not every fisherman will do it, but there's fishermen in this community, in every community, that are probably willing to help out. We've talked about it. We've talked about it with our co-op. Some guys are pretty excited about, somebody that doesn't have that connection coming to them and talk. You got a wealth of knowledge in this community. You got a guy right there, probably the oldest member of our co-op. That he's got a lot of knowledge he could share. The fellow sitting right next to him is one of the guys he's helping out. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be family. We're approachable. Approach us and we can help give you direction. Organizations like them can help give you direction.
Go ahead, Erin.
We have a question on Zoom from Kristen Garabedian. You have all mentioned needing to be a self-starter, motivated determination to be successful as a lobsterman. Can you tell us a bit about some of the aspects you enjoy of being your own boss and some of the challenges?
I think you're probably gonna write it down.
Do you want to pass it down or you want to?
I didn't.
How do you turn it on?
Just hold the button.
The best thing about being a boss, having a family of 3 kids is, the flexibility of your schedule. I do a lot to make sure that I can be at all my kids' sports and try and be at functions for them and everything like that. It's been really, that's one of the best things about lobstering and being your own boss is it doesn't hurt to let them set an extra night. You get to really put your time into what's most important, spending time with your family and your kids and stuff like that. And I really love that about the business. And I love being able to share it with my kids, taking them out and hauling for leisure, just having 10 traps that I take my daughter out and we hand haul, and my other daughter gets her license this year. That's been more fun than any of the big hauls I've got. Being up where I started. I started around Tommy's Island, over there as a kid in South Thomaston, hauling around the shore, and I'm doing that with my kids, and it's been really exciting. So yeah, that's been one of the best parts of being my own boss.
Yeah, and also agree, like the flexibility, it's nice to just have that and. I'd also like to touch on the challenges part more is like that you have to be self-accountable. Like you don't have anyone sitting there telling you to go haul, like you gotta make yourself get up, and you gotta be, the guy. So I'd say, but I mean, which is also something that I enjoy, like, so it kind of goes both ways.
Kind of like what John and Obi said, the flexibility and, I like making my own decisions too. And I'd say the biggest challenge is finding help, good help.
What I like best about it, the freedom is definitely a huge part of it. It's just, I don't know, there's not a lot I really don't like about it. Like I said, we like to growl, but it's a unique way of life. And we all face challenges, it's whether you get back up or not. And, if you're gonna be a fisherman, you better be able to get back up. If you don't, you're not gonna make it.
Ella, did you hear the question when Aaron asked it?
No, sorry, what?
It's okay. Can we shorten it? How can we shorten it?
Yeah,
Basically, what do you like about being your own boss? Like when you're out fishing and you're kind of having to hold yourself accountable and do your thing. What do you like most about that?
and what are challenges?
And are there any challenges?
I really like they said, like the flexibility. I also like how it teaches me a lot of like, responsibility. Like I need to get up and I need to go maintain my gear. Like you gotta get going. Um, Kind of feels like I'm not really my own boss all the time because my dad's always like, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. I'm still learning, I know. Um, but I mean, yeah, it's flexibility. Like in the summer, I'm home, I'm not at school, so I'm trying to do a lot. So I have time to like see my friends, go to these events, and then, still live my life, not just lobstering and going to school.
Just say one other thing about that. I think the other thing that's unique about it, you could be a rocket scientist, NASA, and you're not necessarily gonna get rewarded for how hard you work. In our business, we see a direct correlation most of the time. If we work, we reap the reward. And I think you get that in some businesses, but not every one of them.
Anybody else have any other questions or thoughts that they wanted to add to anything? Yes, Jerry?
I can't help myself.
I know. I was like, I can't imagine.
I get quiet. And that's the cleanest I've seen my room, so we gotta do Zooms more, I mean, my daughter's room, so we gotta do Zooms more often. I don't know this fella here, but he made a question. And I think it's a good one. I can teach my daughter all kinds of things on the boat and my son. And I can teach younger fishermen. But what I can't teach them is how to go to Augusta and fight for their life. I can't teach them how to go to Washington and fight for what they want to fish, how they want to fish. It needs to be taught in a room. And I can't teach my daughter how to save money because she can't. It has to come from somebody else. That also needs to be taught in a room. We have this great new building. I've been advocating this from day one when I heard about it. Fishing is a big part of this community. It's not just this community, up and down the coast of Maine. We need to start getting fishing into classroom and teaching them the things that are just important. We were looking at a 98% cut in this lobster industry. None of these guys would be sitting up there at all. But it was for the intelligent people and some real good board members that we survived. Well, guess what? In 2 years, new biological opinion comes back out and we're back up and running. I am a bait dealer, yes. And I am going to tell you, all day I've been on the phone trying to find bait. This has been the coldest winter we've seen in how many years? And we've been fortunate that Hoagie showed back up in Maine when we looked at a massive herring cut. We live on the edge all the time. All the time. Just when I think the road is gonna get smooth and we're gonna be relaxed for a while, there's a new law that came out, a new rule or new hurdle. From price drops to price rate increases to tariffs, we're just constantly doing. So there's a lot more that we need to teach these kids in classroom, and I'm hoping to make a space in the future, and we'll get volunteer fishermen to come in and teach them the things that we cannot teach everything on the water. That's my statement. And, to John's, and to find out about 401ks and how to save money and all the things. So, that's not a question, that's just my statement. So,
Perfect. Well, I think, you don't have any more questions? I think there's, oh, we do have, go ahead, Karen.
Ella dropped, but I sent her, I just thought some people here might love if she was able to do it. I don't know. She said she's not a technology person, but I sent her a video of her halibut fishing, which is so cool to see that process. And I'll try to post something on my Facebook page because it's completely different from lobstering. Where you're working with single traps and it's a really long line, there's 50 hooks on it. And it's a beautiful thing to watch them bait it and to set it. And it's very different. So like what they were saying, it's just a different process, which is so rewarding to still be on the water, but doing something different, just for that change of pace, and John can attest to that, right?
A lot of fun.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
I imagine, Sarah, if somebody's gonna send an email to thank everybody or something afterwards, so maybe you could send it in the email.
Yeah, we could tag it. Erin has email addresses from last year. And there are people, if you signed in when you got here, we can send you links to the halibut video, and this recording will be posted on the town website if people weren't able to be here tonight.
Yeah, and I imagine there's probably a lot of pizza left if anybody wants any pizza, and you can leave your email. I think that was everything that I was supposed to say. So, Mike, do you wanna say anything else, or?
Well, I wanna thank you.
No pressure, but.
Yeah, think something. I wanna thank you very much for facilitating. You did a great job. I wanna thank all of you and all you guys and Ella for being a part of this. And I learned a ton. And I think just sort of going to what Jerry said with the Grace Innovation Center, what we're really trying to do is sort of root education in our community, in our culture, in fishing, in the trades, in hands-on learning, and in entrepreneurship. So we've had people visiting from across the state, other superintendents, board members, nonprofits, trying to figure out like how we're doing what we're doing. With, you've got 5-year-olds that are measuring 2x4s cut through saws. You've got first graders that are using screw guns and assembling benches. I was in a class today and 7th graders and 3 are designing for our laser cutter. So part of what we want to do is take all these hands-on, minds-on learning and technology, and bring and have more partnerships with the fishery, with the fishermen, get them in there, because for the kids themselves, they light up when you all come in the room and when you're working with them. And we see how much that they look up to the work that you're doing, and you really all role models for them, and it makes the learning real. And I think so much of it, I think kids have changed for so many different reasons, social media being one of those, but I think what lights people up is that ability to build and create. And that's not just things, but I think that's also businesses. So I agree, helping them learn the skills on how to start a business, what it means to run a business, from the getting up every morning and going to work, to how do you think about finances. I mean, I remember talking to a kid on Biohaven, lad, when he was in elementary school, and thinking about how much money he would have made if he invested some of what he made one summer back in like the early 2000s. So looking like 3 or 4 years out, what that money would have turned into. So, I think those are the type of conversations we got to start having to make education more and more real and more connected to the community. I think part of the beauty that I've seen is that, I think this is the future of education really for everywhere. But I think we can do it by sort of going back to our roots as who we are. I think that makes it pretty special. So we're going to keep pushing on that. We've made progress, but we still got a lot more work to do. But I thank you all for being here, and, especially, Ella, Obi, and Silas for being younger, being part of this conversation. Certainly to John and Tab, for you guys for showing up and sharing all that you all learned. But
I'm still young. Don't throw me under the bus.
But I do want to bring our kids, I mean, so I'd love to have middle school, high school, and our very recent graduates to be part of these conversations, those are in the future, and I think you can teach them on the lobbying piece, but I would say you gotta start bringing them to the hearings. And bringing them, if you got a group going down to DC, take one of them or two of them down to DC. Because I've heard them talk about what the fishery means to them, and I think if they're talking to senators or representatives or officials, that they're gonna listen, and they can start learning that now.
So the purpose of the Working Waterfront series has been to promote, all aspects of the working waterfront in our community, and we're really lucky that we have the Makerspace CTE program here. Hearing got, the town has sponsored the series, and the Island Institute grant provided the food for tonight. Thank you, Erin, for coordinating that. And so if people have suggestions for future talks like this, you can let me know, or Mike, or Monique, or Tony Small. It's been kind of the little group that's put these together. And I did want to put in a pitch for Hearing God has a talk February 5th, next week, on water quality, which is obviously very important to the fishing industry. And the DMR is going to talk about how they're monitoring the water quality around our shores. So if people are interested in that, go on Hearing God website. So we do have a lot of different things going on, and I'm hoping that the presence of the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association in town will help be a hub for some of this in the future. And Colby's coming, so who knows what they'll contribute to all of this. So thank you for coming. And keep more. I have a question for you.